Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Squid QE Podcast with guests. It is episode 7, I believe. Wow, 7 episodes here. I never would have imagined that this podcast would still be going in today's age, but here we are. Today's podcast is joined by CK, who is a Twitch streamer as well as a program. CK, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. At 7 guests, I think you've interviewed over half the community now, right?
Not quite, but I'm working on it. I'm definitely working.
You get 8 of us in a server, and we're all here.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Last episode was definitely the first time I interviewed 2 guests at a time. So I'm getting there. But
nice.
So go ahead and tell me a little bit about some of the work that you do for Quake and stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's see. I played Quake forever ago, 95 when I was in 5th grade. So I'll give you a clue how old I am right now. So it was a lot of fun when I was younger, and I was really into setting up modem games with my friends because I had AOL dial-up, so I wasn't about to hop on and play with people. So I was super interested in the networking kind of part of it and how one game is talking to another. I had played Doom 2 and Duke Nukem, before Quake, and had kind of done the same thing. Was just fascinated by multiplayer games because they were new. I was kind of interested in that as I got older, and then actually got into networking when I was in high school. Learned a lot about Cisco routers and how networks worked and stuff like that. By that time I was getting broadband and stuff. Quake 3 was out, and so was pretty interested in just kind of how they all communicated and all that. So I ended up I work as a software developer by day at a large networking company. Aruba Networks, so I'll shill for them. My job's been pretty awesome and I love it, and I get to do all kinds of fun development and stuff, but then I never really did any mod development when I was younger because I didn't learn any programming really until I was in college. So when QA, sorry, that was a very long way to get to your answer, but we got an hour, so we might as well, right? So by the time QE came out, with that background, I was like, oh man, I could write mods now. And so that was a really cool, fun experience because, after 15 years of software engineering in the real world, coming on and being like, hey, I can write a little mod for this game that I've been playing for forever. And so, when QE came out, I think somebody had mentioned in one of the previous things, it was almost kind of a reset button on some of the community, or at least in terms of opportunities, because there's a million mods that were developed back in the mid and late 90s and stuff. There's still some that are maintained out there today, but a lot of them, Buckshot put it really well describing the CR mod code base. It was a mess was I think the upshot of it. And there was a lot of mods that were kind of like that. So, as being somebody who works in the software industry and learning how to write mods and that kind of thing, trying to do it in clear ways, I was really interested in a lot of cases of not necessarily having, a huge, project or something like that, but so much as learning more about how all the stuff worked now that I know more, and also kind of helping enable other people out there in the community. I think it was somebody, was it Dan, was talking about how, I had posted somewhere, I guess, on how to load custom maps, in QE, because that was my first question, was okay, cool, they have all the classic id maps, there's a few new ones in the mission packs, but how can I play Aerowalk and what's the other one, ZTN DM3? And so that was pretty easy, obviously, to just go in. But they hadn't changed the game structure that much. But then I started getting interested in learning Quake C because I eat, sleep, and breathe actual C at work. So learning Quake C was total cake. By comparison, it's a pretty limited scripting language. But you could really see what makes the game tick internally. And that was super cool to me. So had a lot of fun kind of doing some early stuff where I think one of the first ones that I did was just a little mod that was shows a speedometer. that that wasn't available in the QE client, but Easy Quake and QSSM, pretty much FTE, all of those have speedometers in them. So I was like, well, how could you do that? So I started learning how Centerprint worked and doing all this stuff. And then, ended up making a collection of things that were kind of like that called QE Tweaks. And it was just the idea. It was just a GitHub project, just available for anybody who wanted to learn stuff. And kind of just had a bunch of weird little changes. One of which was like, make the axe do 100 damage or something like that. Stuff like that, of course, evolved in some ways, or I don't know whether it inspired, folks like Kilomile, working on GG mod and stuff. So it was like, in a lot of ways, was just kind of interested in learning stuff for myself, but also kind of like giving back to what I knew, could be a cool community, because that's kind of traditionally gone hand in hand with Quake, is having this community of, player developer kind of types that, are having some fun, kind of hacking on the game that they enjoy. So, yeah. So that's kind of what I've been doing in the community, I guess, is, I haven't been like Buckshot has put a ton of hours into CRX, and I respect the hell out of the fact that he has taken on such a serious project. To me, I'm like, nah, like I'll take a code base that's out there, but like I want to get back to playing Quake. Yeah. I will do the minimum amount required in order to be able to play more games. So yeah, I had helped Dan out early on. I think when he was doing some stuff with like dual stuff, he was like trying to figure out some of the game logic, and I think he and I collaborated a little bit on that. And yeah, I mean, these days I'm not really as involved in doing mods or that kind of thing, just because a lot of folks have taken ideas and run with them. I guess I did. I would say there's a lot of people who I think are very charitable, that they have credited me for doing the anti-lag stuff. In my view, Reki was the smarts behind it. I kind of just figured out what to type. Reki understands way more about the physics there, because he had done some implementations of stuff like that, I guess, in the past, either for other engines or Quake. I wasn't entirely sure which. But yeah, that was another cool experience of like working with somebody who actually, understood a lot of the stuff going on, and, trying to learn from them and stuff. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, man, you got a lot of experience with Quake there. I'm just a Quake player.
Yeah.
But hey, I appreciate what you guys do here, and your love and passion for what you guys have done for many years now, and stuff like that. And I'm glad that a game like QE does bring players together, and I think that's something that a lot of players, a lot of players that don't play QE kind of don't understand, is that what this game created, not the game itself, but what it created as a community, and it brought people together there, and that's kind of what it did and what it accomplished, and maybe that's all like Night Dive and Microsoft wanted from it, and I'd say it worked. It brought all of us together here, and
it got people talking about Quake again in 2021 or whatever it came out.
yeah, definitely.
I mean, I know there were still some diehards in it, but I know for me it was like Quake, and I like went back to it and I was like, damn, this is really fun. Like I had kind of forgotten.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing that I thought was really neat about QE that I think kind of helped, get a little community, especially going early on, was the fact that it had voice chat in game. Because like early on, I remember voice chatting with like Dan and Captain Mutron and I think Bacteria and stuff, just in some of the games, and just like getting to know people, because you'd see them over and over on the servers. And that was kind of a cool like pre-Discord era. I kind of wish the other Quake clients had voice chat natively, but I mean, we all just use Discord a lot of the times. But
really, so you can't voice chat on like Easy Quake or anything?
Not, maybe it's in there somewhere. I would fully believe that some of these code bases have some amount of voice over IP, but either people don't use it or it's not enabled by default or something like that. So it's not something I've ever really pursued. But with QE having console players too, like Captain Mutron, if you ever played with or against him, he was an Xbox player to begin with. He ended up picking up an old PC just to be able to play, custom maps. But early on, he was like super good at playing on Xbox with a controller.
Yeah, I've heard about that. He's not Xbox player anymore, but
I think he plays on PC now, but you'll find him often on the match browser. I've found when I pop onto the QE client.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would agree. He's a good player and everything.
Yeah, so, he's a super nice dude, which is I think what a lot of this community has enjoyed finding in each other is just people who enjoy just playing an online game that whatever, if it's old, it feels like a very low level of toxicity. There's always some ridiculously, but it's
I mean, you can find some toxic players.
Oh, of course.
just go pubbing or something like that. But
totally.
that's another thing too, right? Like pubbing, you can't even do that in most. Well, I guess you could actually, but most other. Like Quake World, I feel like is kind of a game unless you schedule games, you're not really gonna find many games there.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is the player count's fairly low because like FTE and I'm pretty sure Easy Quake and maybe QSSM do have like master server lists, and so if somebody pops onto one of those, they'll actually like show up in our server browser. But the player counts in the communities are low enough that I think a lot of folks just arrange games outside of the game. It's not like the norm to just go look for a pub game happening.
Yeah, definitely. So you're also a Twitch streamer, correct?
I guess so. I had just started streaming a little bit before QE came out. I think I streamed a little bit of like some Switch games and maybe like what was that? It was like Pokemon Stadium, and then I think like Minecraft with my kids or something like that. So I had done really very little, but then when Quake came out, it was kind of like, hey, nobody really is doing this, or at least not doing it very consistently. And I thought it kind of seemed like a neat way to like engage some people that hadn't been, had maybe heard of a game like this, but hadn't come across it, and just opening up this, hey, there's this remaster you can go pick up on Steam. Kind of thing. Thought would be kind of fun, and plus the demands on my system are low enough that I can do both a Twitch stream and play the game on a 5-year-old computer. Nice. I've been playing a lot of Diablo 4 lately, but I haven't been streaming it because aforementioned computer is 5 years old.
Yeah, I've seen your Diablo streams. I do try to hop on, like when I see you guys stream, because I like supporting you guys, like even if it's just to give you a view count or something. Whatever. I do like supporting you guys, but a lot of times I just I don't have time myself to stay on a stream, but I would like pop in and just say like hi or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome when people do, because I mean a lot of the times my viewer count is below 10 or below people kind of thing, but it's just kind of like I'm just putting it out there because it's just me having fun. I'm not worried about making a buck or anything off of it. Although I did from the very first tournament, the 1v1 tournament. I actually was able to get affiliate status from that because I ended up getting so many viewers from that. So that was kind of fun. Like, I was like, oh, that's neat, but like my kids thought it was a real big deal because all their like pop stars as far as they're concerned are all like YouTube and Twitch gamers. Yeah. It's like, Dad, you got to get merch now, and I'm like, I don't know about that, but
you never know, man. You never know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but
watch CK lose hats.
I mean, I think that is a good accomplishment because that's your first payout, right?
My first payout, I think I got sometime early this summer. So, however long that was between the 1v1 tournament, like what was that, fall of 2020 maybe, until sometime in 2023. Because Twitch doesn't pay out until $50. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, but hey, man, congrats on that. I think I saw you post that in the Discord a while back.
Yeah.
Kind of looking.
Which I think I finally broke even on my like microphone purchase and stuff. So that's good.
Yeah. I
the hobby is now paid for itself.
I think that's also kind of what separates YouTube and Twitch, because I think Twitch's monetary gains is a little better than what YouTube has. YouTube is very like you almost got to be like a superstar to get anything from
right.
And it's so weird because YouTube is it's a much larger platform. It's
Right. There's a lot of people, just a lot more eyeballs, right?
yeah. Well, not only that too, and like like obviously Google runs it, and they're
Right.
much larger than the Twitch owners are and everything. So
Well, I mean, Amazon owns Twitch, so
okay. I thought that was just a rumor. Okay, I didn't actually know that.
nope. It is. There is an ownership relationship there.
Gotcha. Well, I take that back then.
Yeah, there was certain like brand like crossovers that at a certain point, like once I found that out, I was like, oh, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, I got you. That would explain the Amazon integration then, but
Yeah.
Steph says you should do CK socks.
Oh, socks.
Yeah, socks. I think
There's CK sucks. I'm like, wow, Steph, that's a aggressive username suggestion, but all right.
I think that was his. I think that was the joke behind it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I'm still pretty new to like the whole streaming world. I'm still learning things here. Just the last few podcasts, I've had my share of problems there, and I learned from that. But
Yeah, it's all good.
yeah, but we all got to start somewhere and everything.
Yeah, and for me, it's it's kind of like how I approach Quake modding. I'm like, I learned just enough to like get going, and I'm like, all right, I want to play games. I don't want to spend forever, fiddling with this because it's not. This is my hobby time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it reaches a point where I'm like, okay, this is past my level of interest.
Yeah. So I kind of like getting different opinions of developers and stuff. About like different situations, like especially with coding and stuff like that. There. So
Sure.
what are some of the things that set Quake C apart from just normal Quake C programming, like in your perspective?
From normal C programming?
Yeah.
So I mean, C is a is a full-blown programming language that operating systems are written in C, right? The Linux operating system, EST operating system, they're entirely written in C. Quake C is, like I mentioned earlier, kind of basically a scripting language on top of the game engine. But where that's cool is that all the game rules and that kind of thing end up being run in that scripting language. I mean, if you look, like that's stayed a pattern in many modern games. Like you look at World of Warcraft and it has like Lua scripting. A lot of that game's logic for like what the NPCs do or what the characters do, stuff like that. A lot of that is written in Lua so that the people who are kind of scripting the events and stuff don't have to muck around with like the game engine. So it's kind of a like interesting layer that Carmack and friends put on Quake, and then I think ended up like probably becoming a pattern across a lot of the industry, especially because early on there were so many games that were based on id Tech engines.
Yeah, that makes sense there. So looking at it like a Lua style or even like a Python style.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like kind of a limited subset of things that it can do. There's some things that like a lot of programmers, whether C or otherwise, are like really used to being able to do. Like any sort of manipulation of strings, right? Like things that you're going to print, characters, letters and stuff. Quake C really does not have any dynamic abilities to do that. At least natively. I don't know whether there's been probably some extensions and stuff like that. There was a little bit of stuff that Night Dive did in order to enhance it for the QE client, but of course, because that's closed source, it's not implemented on most of the other clients. So yeah, there's some various things like that that are kind of like would be expected to be kind of normal in most programming languages, but aren't part of Quake C, and presumably had reasons one way or the other. It might have been the performance of your average 1995 PC, or saving on code space. I don't know.
Yeah. Does because like you mentioned, like the client is closed source, but they did release the code for their version of Quake C. Does that help you do any like changes to like something like with QE that you wouldn't normally because the code isn't open source or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, when they first announced that they were going to make the Quake C open source, it was like, okay, well, I guess that'll be cool in some ways because it helped to figure out a few spots where like they had changed stuff, or things were a little weird, or or kind of misaligned with some of the other clients. But I mean, by and large, the Quake C was not all that different from the Quake C that it released back in 95, 96, whatever that was. For sort of their latest versions. So there wasn't anything like earth shattering. I think it sort of pointed out or helped show how they did localization in QE, because the original Quake was just all English characters and stuff. Whereas QE, is able to handle the Unicode character set. So they added Unicode handling instead of just plain, ASCII text. So yeah, there was a little bit of stuff that kind of helped point out, but it also, it didn't expose some of the stuff of like, modifications they might have made to like the network protocol and stuff like that. That would have been kind of cool, and ultimately if we had the client source, would be able to do things like UI customization and stuff like that. That's something that's really hard on QE. Oops. My Quake just crashed on me.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't have this map.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah.
If you could change the map, that would be nice.
That's all good. My Easy Quake client just dropped me. So.
QE problems, If it was Easy Quake, I would be in already.
Yeah. Right. I think the server crashed.
Oh, great. Right in the
we can do ohio.crx quick.
I don't. Well, what's the address?
It's just ohio.crxquake.com instead of maybe that one's not up either.
Is it not?
Hang on, I'll find us a server here.
No, not up either.
Yeah. I don't know if that one necessarily crashed, but it may just be down. I know sometimes when nobody's playing, Buckshot cycles them down.
It's funny. I just got a flashback of the first podcast I did where Salty joined Denver and he was having the problem with disappearing players. And I just thought about like how these problems always happen when I'm podcasting.
But that's perfect.
Every time I'm not podcasting, I won't have a problem at all, and I don't understand.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's pretty cool stuff what you guys accomplished with anti-lag and stuff. And I like that you did it in a way where it's like you could do it even with people who are on consoles, because like if you think how QE is, most of the time, console players, they can't do anything outside of just joining the pub servers and stuff like that. So anti-lag enabled a way where you can benefit that even the console players, because it doesn't change anything with the client itself. It's all server side and stuff like that. So I think that's a really cool thing that you guys managed to accomplish with that kind of stuff. With that being said, I always thought though, like, could you make something like, because like another thing that I always wish QE had was like the fake shaft ability, like you see in like QSSM or EasyQuake.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing we would need client side sort of access for. That unfortunately isn't available, and there were in some of the Quake clients, there was the idea of client side Quake C. So that you could still not even necessarily have to give your engine source away, but your client would actually execute Quake C on its side, and so potentially something like that. I don't remember what the extensions and stuff for it work like, because I haven't really ever tried to write it. But so in theory, you could draw things to different pieces and aspects of the client. That was one of the things that I was going to say before the server ate itself. Was by the way, Denver's back up. If you're not, you're there.
Yeah, I'm in here.
Cool. I had found there's also Chicago is up and empty currently, but Denver had come up by then.
That's all right.
But that was actually one of the things that is probably the closest thing that I have to legacy that's that's still in CRX, and of course, Buck has taken it and extended it to the nth degree. But the user interface, right? So like the timer that's in your lower left corner.
Yes.
That was actually one of my like first like mod things that like the community was like, please, can we get a timer? Because as you know, timing like quad and red armor and stuff like that is kind of a big part of the game. And so like the really successful players early on had like a timer just running on their phones or on a clock nearby or something like that. So basically, yeah, using the like center print functionality. So when like when you join the game and in normal Quake single player, right, and it says like welcome to Quake, or it has the like epilogue text when you kill a boss or stuff like that. That center or when you push buttons, when it says one more to go or stuff like that, right? So that's the center print functionality. So the client has that built in, and the server gets to send that as often as it wants, like every game tick. So as it turned out, you were able to basically draw like a rudimentary text UI by just continually center printing, or every like 0.1 seconds or something center printing to each client. So yeah, we were able to get a timer that way. And then from there, I kind of was interested in extending it and figured out how to do like ammo counts and stuff, right? Because the QE, what is it, HUD is by default like that kind of full screen mode, and it just shows your ammo and health and armor, but the ammo only for your current weapon. So I like figured out how to get more stuff, just jammed into that print screen or that center print and stuff like that. So yeah, it was kind of some fun little projects, and I think the one thing that was like fun about some of that stuff is it was very visually oriented. I think I streamed a bunch of those sessions where I was trying to figure that out and modding that, because it was fun because I'd make a little adjustment to the Quake C, and I had a pretty nice little tight like cycle there where I'd do compile, reload the level, and it would show on my screen right then. So it was, I think kind of fun, maybe to watch and see what was going on, and I was having fun doing it. So yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, my my legacy of the QE mod development, I think, lives on in the game timer and ammo counts and stuff when they get printed to your screen.
Hey, that's an improvement. I mean, because like normal QE, if you want to see the timer, you got to open up like the tab menu and stuff like that. And
right.
Like
yeah, you have to do the scoreboard, exactly. Yeah, but like in all the other normal Quake clients, there's an option to turn a game timer on. Like my Easy Quake has a giant 7 minutes 10 seconds across the top of my screen.
Yeah. So that's definitely an improvement that I very much appreciated. I wish. Is there any way to get that to work on like the pub servers and stuff, or is it just like...
No, because it needs to be run on the server. So like whoever's running the servers, if they have a mod or a small amount of mods or that kind of thing, it just needs to include that because it's entirely determined by the server. Yeah.
And now that you mentioned it, I think I do remember at least Dan's servers, I believe, did have the timer on his at least one of his pub servers, but.
Yeah, and that was another one of those ones that I threw into that QE tweaks, mod, with the idea being that like it would all be really well commented, and if people wanted to go use that timer code somewhere else, they could,
Nice. Yeah. So, what else do you do with I don't know, like hobbies or spare time, or like what do you do like when you're not playing Quake?
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned earlier, lately I've been pretty into Diablo 4. The first season of that just started yesterday, so I rolled up a beginning of a rogue there. So I've been having fun with that. My girlfriend, anybody who's watched my Twitch stream, she's sitting in the background there. We actually play Diablo together, which is fun. Sometimes we're just sitting both playing Diablo, even if we're not on the same server or dungeon. And she thinks she's rocking some Stardew Valley right now. So
does she want to say something? I'll allow it.
Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
I don't know if you remember me, but I was saying I thought you were his wife.
Give off wife energy. I'm getting looks over here.
All right. I gotcha. Yeah. Mostly what I do is Yeah, I just like when I'm not playing Quake, I'm either working or doing something with my fiance or just playing some casual games or something like that. But Quake is like the only real competitive game I still play. Because even before Quake, I never really played competitive gaming. I don't know what it is about Quake that drew me into it. Actually, QE specifically did, but but
it's just the right place, right time.
Yeah, it's something like I don't know, like the feel of it, and just like
I played a lot of Quake 3 because that was the current game when I got broadband internet, and so I played a lot of Quake 3, and I had some friends that had played Quake 1. And, oh yeah, so much better. 3 is okay, but 1's better. And like these days, I've gone back. I picked up Quake Live or something on Steam the other day. And it was like, oh yeah, I like Quake 1 a lot better. It just feels punchier. Like all the weapons feel like they hurt.
Yeah.
And there is kind of it's kind of a low time to kill, but I think that's part of the fun is that you just, so what? I died 20 times. You just keep going, like.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of the thing with a lot of modern arena shooters that it feels like you're a lot more tankier, And it just
even Quake 3, it was like, how many rockets do I have to hit somebody with to kill them?
Yeah, that's
Quake 1 is 100. Quake 1 is 100 damage and then plus some random variable amount. So like if you don't have armor, you're dead. You're just dead from a direct hit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I was playing Quake 3. I was just like, man, this rocket launcher feels so wimpy compared to like Quake 1.
Yeah.
And it's just like am I even hitting this guy or is it like shit? But yeah.
Yeah, Quake 1 multiplayer was such a happy accident of game balance because it's not balanced,
Exactly. Yeah, they just made it like I always said I think it's like a tier system, right? Like because it's obviously it was built around like single player stuff. So you build up in the game, you acquired a new tier of a weapon. So you started with the axe plus shotgun, which are your weakest weapon. Then you gather the nail gun, which I mean, in the multiplayer it sucks, but in the campaign it's pretty decent.
Right.
And then you work up to your grenade launcher, rocket launcher, and then the LG, which is I guess like you could consider that the BFG of Quake. I mean,
it's like it is and it isn't, but it's the closest thing to that. It's like you don't find ammo for it that often, I think, in single player, and when you have it, you're just like superpowers.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think that's kind of the idea they went with the system there.
Totally.
Versus like modern arena shooters where they revolved it around a whole entire balance.
Right, they're trying to make 5 weapons that are all balanced with each other.
Yeah, well, so that it gives you some like variety. Like each weapon will have its own use, and
totally.
Like you'll use like the machine gun or the chain gun from like Quake 2, for example.
Right.
Like that's obviously a high fire rates with a good range there, so it gives you something other than just using the rocket launcher or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that though, but like obviously if you attuned your skills to like a Quake 1 style balance where everything's just revolved around just grab a rocket launcher and shoot everybody, but yeah, so like obviously in my opinion, like I agree with you, like Quake 1's better, but I wouldn't say that like Quake 3 is bad or anything. It's just that obviously my skills are different.
It's a different feel. Yeah,
it's just my skill is attuned to Quake 1, and that's pretty much where I'll be all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I went back and played a little Quake Live, but it was like it didn't stick for me, And I'm sure it's the kind of thing where it's like part of what keeps me coming back is, there's familiar faces to play with and stuff that, like any community, if you get involved, and there's consistent people around, like is fun almost no matter what game it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, speaking of the Quake weapons, I had heard an interesting random fact of the reason that there was a grenade launcher, supposedly, at least according to whatever source I heard, the reason there was a grenade launcher in Quake, because it was kind of an odd choice at the time, was basically because grenades did a great job of demoing the fact that there was real physics in Quake, that you could bounce things and stuff like that, which I think is an interesting thing to consider in today's world. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever, you have physics in a game, that's normal, but back then that was a big deal. It's not just hit scan weapons, there's projectiles,
yeah,
which like in Doom, the what was it, the chain gun, right? That was just I mean, all the guns, but in Doom, that was a hit scan gun, but in Quake, we have nail guns because those are actually little tiny projectiles that get spawned every time you fire the gun.
What about the Doom rocket launcher?
Yeah, that one, was sort of that like pseudo physics, right? Because it was all sprite based. So that was like, but that was just like a kind of physics applied to a 2D world, basically, right? Because they didn't have the concept of like things being able to bounce and stuff, and like people when they die, all their little gibs they bounce off the ground, So there's a lot of bouncing logic that John Carmack made sure to demo in Quake.
So what is it about the physics of Quake World that separates it from NetQuake then?
So my understanding of it, which I there's somewhere out there somebody wrote like a wiki page that's basically the exhaustive list of all the differences. The one though that was the big takeaway for me was referred to, at least I think in some of that text, as a mandatory friction frame. So anytime you touch the ground in NetQuake, there is one frame of friction, like minimum, no matter how little of amount of time you're touching the ground, where friction physics apply and you slow down a little bit, basically. Whereas in Quake World, they actually removed that. So that's why in Quake World you can bunny hop, and it's actually possible to gain speed by jumping, is because you can keep stacking that speed, basically. Versus in NetQuake physics, that friction actually keeps you capped at a certain point. It's still faster than you could just run the normal 320, so it's still possible to get going like maybe 400 or 500. But in Quake World, you can, I want to say it's like 800 or 900 or something that some people can get up to. I don't know. I don't know the details of, maybe that's lowballing it even, but that's how Quake World players get the like ridiculous speed, is that the physics engine just is tuned a little differently.
Gotcha. So it's more like it's because I was under the impression that like NetQuake doesn't really have physics. I just thought everything was like either handmade or something like that. But so it sounds more like the fact that it does have physics. It's just that Quake's world physics is different.
Yeah, there were some slight tweaks. I think there was also some stuff related to like ramps and stairs and stuff. I think ramp jumping, or what you do on stairs, I think some of that shifted a little bit. I can't remember the details of it, but it was actually really interesting when I was working on the anti-lag stuff. Kind of trying to wrap my head around some of it. Having these conversations with Reki and others about like what could we do in these circumstances and stuff like that. And I don't remember how I came across it, but it was I don't know if you followed them at that time, but a bunch of the employees from id, particularly John Carmack, kept what they called a plan file, which I mean was like basically early days blog before the term blog existed. And so he would like just update, periodically of like what he was working on and his thoughts on, whatever it was that he was in the middle of. So it was like a neat way to get insights into what was going on. But anyway, I came across John Carmack's plan file from like right after the retail release of Quake, where he was, it was getting out there in the wild in terms of like people were playing it and stuff. They had released some of the like NetQuake or some of the, I'm trying to remember, some of the stuff to basically be able to play, online. But it was before Quake World. It was basically, he was talking about the fact that when he wrote the netcode for Quake, his testing in terms of like, testing from a remote location, not, in the id offices, was from his home. Well, at his home, he had a T1 line. So he was low latency, even if he was playing over, the internet or, a remote network. But, most people just had modems back then, right? And so he's like going on in this post about basically the kind of physics you would have to implement to essentially create like an anti-lag effect. Yeah. And, he gets to the point of talking about projectiles and the amount of things you have to do in order to do it right. And he's like, I don't think this is going to work very well this way. I'm probably going to change up the netcode in a serious way to optimize it for latency. And then it goes on to detail like basically what the beginning of Quake World was, and how he wrote the server architecture a bit differently, and the way that it handles packets and stuff from clients. And it was like, okay, this is basically the justification for why Quake World existed to begin with. Was he probably would have done it differently the first time if he was optimizing for network play, and over higher latency connections.
Yeah, I think Buckshot was talking a little bit about that too. Not as in-depth as you did, though. But no, but yeah, I do agree that that's kind of how his thought pattern was at the time then. But like even like if you look at it today, it kind of like obviously it's one of those things where it's like. It seems like it doesn't matter anymore because everybody has got like really fast internet now, and dial-up is a thing of a past now, and fiber internet's getting a lot more common now, so stuff like that just
Well, and that's where it's like, on most games, most modern engines, and even Quake World these days, it basically doesn't matter. We're all pretty low latency and that kind of thing. But that's also where, still NetQuake players are like, oh man, I have 100 ping. That's going to suck,
Yeah. Which begs the question, why do people still play NetQuake? I don't really...
I mean, you get used to one thing.
I think, and I don't want to shit at, like, NetQuake, because obviously NetQuake's the reason why any of us are playing this to begin with, but QE is just so far better.
Well, QE takes an interesting balance of, it is NetQuake, ultimately. There were parts of it that were optimized, right? There's client-side prediction and stuff, but there's not, the actual rewrite of the protocol like Quake World had, that from a fundamental perspective, like puts you on better footing to begin with, right? So you don't have to compensate for some things that ultimately were just design choices and how they did the original netcode.
So here's an interesting question then, because you said it's still NetQuake. So if you took NetQuake, how much changes or how many changes or what would you have to do until the point it's not considered NetQuake anymore?
I don't know. I mean, at a certain point, there's a protocol, right? In terms of what a NetQuake client speaks. And a lot of the open source or well-maintained Quake clients will speak a number of the flavors of the protocol. There's it's somewhat versioned, but then some of the versions are kind of determined by the community. So yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what you mean by NetQuake in those points, but I know the big differentiator for like NetQuake versus Quake World ends up being how that protocol looks, in terms of how the client and the server talk to each other.
Because I know like client-side prediction was one of the big things that kind of separated and stuff like that. So that's why I raised that question there, because it's kind of interesting. Because QE does have that ability. It is client-side prediction. And now I know, like, I think it was Spike or something like that mentioned, like, it's obviously not the same as like what Quake World does. I think he mentioned it as like he mentioned it more like in QE, or in QE you're like teleporting or something like that, rather than how the client-side prediction works in Quake World. But I think the end result's kind of the same. I think it's more the technicality that's different about it or something like that. I don't know. Spike could probably explain that way better than I can. I mean, he's
there's some interesting stuff with what I think is the way they did the client prediction in QE. I don't remember a ton about I don't remember if I ever learned that at some point, really how they had done the prediction in QE. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff where it basically like it allows the client to like take the, information from your input kind of thing and apply that immediately. Because normally if you push forward, what that means is that, if you push W on your keyboard, right, that packet has to go to the server has to process that movement information, and it comes back to you, and then physics rendering happens, kind of thing. So yeah, there's this like big long delay that, if the client instead you push W, the client moves you forward one frame, but then it also sends that packet to the server. then by the time it gets back from the server, it goes, okay, well, yeah, that's where I would have put you anyway, kind of thing, right? Then sometimes that interplays in a weird way, like if you've got some latency and stuff like that. Sometimes it might be that a rocket might have hit next to you and changed your path, so maybe the client prediction wasn't perfect for that frame or something. So ideally, it all ends up indistinguishable, but
yeah. I do know Spike said, I'm trying to think what he said now. He did say it was, oh geez, I'm losing my words here. But I do know another thing about the QE client, because it's made from Kex engine and stuff like that. But another thing with the QE client is that anything above 60 FPS is like, how do you pronounce it? Interpolated or whatever.
Interpolated.
Yeah, that's that there. So because obviously Quake World, if you're above, I don't really know exactly what that means. Is that some kind of just how the game renders frames or something like that?
It's something along those lines. So if you've heard people talk about the tick rate of a game. That has to do with basically how many little slices of time the server processes per second, kind of thing. So if you say that if there's a 60 hertz tick rate, I don't remember what the numbers would end up being in Quake, but so if you say it's 60 hertz, that's 60 times per second that you're going to send and receive updates between the client and the server. So the idea there would be that if you have 200 updates from your client, the server is only going to pay attention to 60 of them or something along those lines. I think is the rough idea there.
Gotcha. Another thing, as I was shooting this button here with my crosshair dead on and I'm missing every shot, but another thing that is kind of annoying about QE is that your aim is not exactly centered with the crosshair.
Oh yeah, so getting the crosshair aligned was such a chore.
Did you actually do it?
Yeah, what I ended up doing was I think I was using, I don't know if it was the nail gun or something like that, but it was I kind of got on a wide open level, a DM7 or something like that. And I would just shoot a nail, or a rocket or something like that and kind of watch the path of where it went. And then, I'd just kind of, nudge it over, 0.1 or something at a time for the crosshair X and crosshair Y.
How do I get that?
I think it's on console. I want to say it's maybe CL_crosshair X. Or just crosshair X.
Oh, you mean just do it? Oh, just do it in my console?
Yeah.
So I don't need any patch or anything?
No. And it's that's a you can do crosshair X and crosshair Y, and basically 0 means the original location kind of thing, and you can do a positive or a negative number if you wanted it shifted up or down or left or right.
Gotcha. All right.
So you can do that to fix your crosshair alignment, because it also depends on which character you use for your crosshair. I think that's a choice in default QE now. I don't remember now.
Gotcha.
At one point, that was a hacked in thing that JP had put into his little what was that called? QE patches.
Is that how Netquake is? Is it not aligned?
On Netquake, I think there is a built-in crosshair, original, if you were to run Windquake or something. So my suspicion is that it might also have a little bit to do with the fact that, like I mentioned, Night Dive added Unicode character handling. So what that also meant is that all of I found this out when I tried to do the timer stuff, to do a little UI kind of thing. Yeah. The Unicode font that they used is not fixed width. So what that means is that, for example, an L character is thinner than, for example, an O character, right? If you have a fixed width font, everything is exactly the same width in terms of how much space it takes up. The text doesn't necessarily look as nice, but everything lines up, kind of thing. Text gets much harder to align when you have variable width fonts. And I think they used the Unicode variable width font for the crosshair character. And so I think that's why it didn't end up perfectly centered, whereas I think Netquake, it might just be centered by default because it just uses a period or an X or something along those lines, or plus. I think he uses a plus.
Gotcha. I'll
And
tell
I
you
think
what.
the original Quake font, the plus, was perfectly centered.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Post that crosshair thing on the Discord. You can do that when we're done or whatever. But
Yeah, right on, for sure.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out there because I would like.
Oh man, yeah, you playing with off crosshairs too?
Well, I mean, I kind of mastered it, but it would help in like it would help in like Instagib and stuff like that.
Oh, I love it.
If I could center that.
You're handicapping yourself for all of our sake. I appreciate that.
I don't know about that, man, but Quake 1's sweet. Yes, I do agree with that. Quake 1 is very sweet. It's not the first game I ever played. The first game I ever played was Doom. But yeah, Quake was somewhere along the lines I played. I don't remember when exactly. It was so long ago, but yeah.
Yeah, that was my first experience with first-person shooters. Was Doom 2 multiplayer at my friend's house, who back in the early 90s, they had three PCs in their household in like the early 90s. Like their dad worked for a computer company in Silicon Valley, so and they were all networked with each other, which like back then was like, I don't know, maybe Token Ring or something. So like not a normal setup, but being able to play multiplayer Doom 2, I was like, this is amazing. I'm hooked. That was how I ended up before I got into modem play and stuff with my friends. I was absolutely hooked on the multiplayer game experience from that.
Hey, that's one way to go. I didn't play multiplayer until QE came out, and
Oh yeah. Yeah, see, I finished the single player episodes of Quake for the first time in QE because I had literally never played past the end of episode 1. Having played it, I wasn't missing much. It felt like I wasn't a huge fan of the later episodes.
Yeah, it's not the greatest campaign, but I do like the Lovecraftian kind of inspiration they did with it, and I think that's kind of what inspired a lot of other Lovecraft games, especially like Amnesia and stuff like that. I feel like it got an inspiration from the game. Obviously, Amnesia is a very different game from Quake, but I feel like
I had a bit of random trivia for you.
Okay, what's up?
Because so I forget who it was when they were on mentioned one of the id developers, Sandy Peterson. So Sandy Peterson is actually the one of, if not the principal, maybe designer of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game.
Okay.
So that came out back in I think it was the 80s or early 90s, and from what I had heard, after the success of Doom, I think it was after Doom 1 maybe, or maybe it was Wolfenstein, the guys at id had hired Sandy Peterson with the hopes that basically he would run like D&D and like Call of Cthulhu games for them. And then Sandy ended up getting enlisted to becoming a mapper, to do a bunch of the maps. And I think he did some Doom 2 maps, and then he did a bunch of the Quake maps. But part of the reason why Quake is, sort of set in this Lovecraftian kind of universe is because, he had a lot of influence on hey, there's this cool mythos of like all these, evil, dark character, kind of things. So yeah, that was
Call of Cthulhu. Didn't they do like a reboot or a remake or something like that recently?
There have been a number of different forms of card games, board games, a number of things over the years. Because part of the interesting thing is that the Lovecraft mythos, right? All the old H.P. Lovecraft stories and stuff are public domain these days. So you don't have to pay for rights if you do something Cthulhu themed.
So that's kind of why everybody goes after that.
Exactly. Yeah. If you've played any of the indie board games or that kind of thing, there's the obligatory Cthulhu expansion, and it's because you don't have to pay anybody trademark rights or anything like that in order to make a Cthulhu themed expansion.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Because I think isn't the boss of Quake kind of based off that one specifically? The boss of Quake.
That's the Shub-Niggurath or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce the name exactly because there's all the weird characters and apostrophes and stuff. But she's like a Lovecraft, story character or something.
I was hoping you would know how to pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce it either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would explain the fandom and the like all these games that kind of go Lovecraftian and stuff. Because another Lovecraftian horror game that I think of is like like Alone in the Dark and stuff, and that's kind of like the grandfather of survival horror and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that I guess that kind of explains why a lot of games go with that kind of genre and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't realized that was sort of the story behind it until I got into playing D&D with my kids, and then at one point I had picked up the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game book and was like, Sandy Peterson, didn't he work at id Software? Like I vaguely recalled that name amongst others of some of the old id staff, and then I went and looked up the history and was like, oh, okay, so all that stuff was kind of happening in the same sphere. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I never knew that.
yeah, it was just a random thing that I think it was one of the previous guests mentioned something about Sandy Peterson. Yeah.
Gotcha. Anyone else that big time over at id Software or anything?
I mean, I don't know any of them personally, but
all right,
there was a day when I used to follow a lot of their sort of plan files and stuff in the Quake 3 era because I was super interested in what was happening next or this game that was coming out and stuff. So yeah, there was a whole bunch of folks that did some interesting things over the years. And then if you've ever looked at any of those kind of visual maps of id Software and a handful of other early companies and all the video game industry that they spawned off into, in so many of those cases there's a story of somebody who left either id Software or one of the companies that made the early Quake mission packs or different things like that, splitting off and forming their own company or studio or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of it's a really neat piece of gaming history because it's such a common touch point, because there were not a lot of games being developed that were pushing all the technology and network play and all that stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't really a big fan of Quake mission packs, to be honest.
I have still not played them. I think I streamed myself playing the first couple levels of whatever the first mission pack is considered to be.
I'm sorry, I just saw that guy's chat and he gay. I don't know why that made me laugh, but it was just so random, I guess. No, you're not missing all that much on the mission packs, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although I will say the new enemies are they're not new enemies, but the enemies of the mission pack are some of them got some cool designs, like the little spider bots.
Gotcha. The one thing that was kind of interesting, and I think you guys touched on it in the past, was that one of the missions when mission packs actually included CTF, and that was Dave Kirsch that went under the name Zoid. He was the guy that did 3-Wave CTF. They actually hired him in order to bring Capture the Flag officially into Quake. It was kind of funny though, because when it was the early days of QE, JP and I were looking through a bunch of the pack files and stuff, and I was like, dude, the mission packs are here. We have Capture the Flag assets actually in here. The flags and everything like that were actually already in the pack files. Because they had been part of the mission packs. So that was we were sort of mucking around with some of that stuff, but then it was not too long later. Yeah, they released 3-Wave as sort of an official thing that was included in QE, and you could pick it from the menus and all that. So
nice. Well, I guess there's one thing we can thank for the mission packs is that.
Yeah.
But I think you should try just do the whole campaign once or something like that. I mean, they are legendary for a reason.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've played at this point now, because I played it on my Switch. I ended up playing it on my TV on my Switch. Played through the whole single player of the default game. I still haven't played the Dimensions of the Machine and stuff that were the sort of new levels and stuff that I keep hearing everybody say, oh, those are pretty fun, you should check those out.
Yeah, me and Bacteria, the podcast, we did the Dimension Machine.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, there's not a whole lot. Actually, there's nothing really new other than some of the map designs and the dimension scenes. But other than that, it's like the same enemies and stuff like that. But
Oh, of course, yeah.
the designs are pretty cool. I will admit. It's cool in the sense of that you would never really think like on Quake Engine you would make something like that. That's kind of what makes it cool and stuff. So they are worth checking it out, I would say.
Sweet.
Even if, but like the multiplayer maps, like the only one I've ever really liked is Mustard Factory.
Yeah, well, and we were talking about CTF earlier, and speaking of Mustard Factory too, that was one of my like early things of was interested in figuring out was if we could mod maps basically without modifying the client, right? So console players and everything could play. JP was able to figure out how to do some simple capture the flag early on, so we had like QE CTF servers. And so we figured out actually that if there was like a platform or a lift somewhere on a level, you could basically use Quake C to duplicate that platform. And so I ended up making a capture the flag version of House of Chthon, E1 M7. And that was actually like one of my early like, oh hey, this is pretty fun, kind of things. It wasn't quite a mod, but it was like, a playable CTF version of that map, which was tiny, of course, but yeah, it was kind of fun. And then I got a little chuckle that when the 3-wave CTF pack came out, they actually they called it like Capture of Chthon or something like that. I don't know whether that map pre-existed or whether somebody had seen my work on E1 M7 and said, oh, we should do a real version of that map. But yeah, I got a little smile out of it. I don't know exactly what the history of it was at Night Dive, but yeah.
Nice. That's pretty cool. We're coming up to our 1 hour mark, but I wanted to share something with you that I don't know if you know this already, but I wanted to share something kind of special here. You were actually the first Twitch live streamer I ever subscribed to.
Oh, no way!
I don't know if you ever knew that. Yeah. I had a Twitch stream from before. I did a little Twitch streaming, and then I just kind of erased everything because I was bad at it, and nobody watched me, so I never did anything with it. But what I really wanted to say was, I watched your live streams and stuff like that. I think I met you. Actually, I met you like when we did the big 1v1 turn, like the very first 1v1 tournament.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I remember. Who's this Squid and Troll Octopus guy? He was just murdering people. He came out of nowhere.
I remember everybody asking, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's a NetQuake player," and I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Right. That was the rumor early on. That was we were trying to figure out in the tournament stream, like, who is this dude? Is he an alias of some old player? Because he's just stomping us.
Yeah, no, I'm not NetQuake. I'm a QE player, so completely QE. But with a TFC experience, so that's probably where I got.
Right, yeah, I had heard you mention you had played
some
TFC.
of my skill, not all my skill, because I never really did competitive play in TFC.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to say was that I the reason why I do this kind of stuff, like why I started my own Twitch channel, is that I kind of took inspiration from you. I just saw because to me you were just like a normal average person, and you were just some guy that you were the first one I ever really communicated to with and like a stream and stuff like that. I've never really done that with anyone before. And,
cool.
and I thought about all that, and I thought about, what, I'm going to go and do kind of like my own thing and see where I can get with.
Yeah.
Because, I look at someone like you're a pretty amazing guy, and what you do and stuff like that there is really cool there. And everybody who, all the programmers there, you guys do such amazing work and stuff like that there. So, yeah, I took my channel complete inspiration from you and stuff, and I decided that I just wanted to go off and do things and do things there. Yeah, so I wanted to share that with you there. I thought that would maybe brighten your day or something like that there. But I really.
I'm not trying. Shut up, Squid. Shut up.
And I really thank you for your inspiration and what you do, and I hope you go off and do big things there, and maybe you'll become the next who's that big Twitch streamer that
I don't know. Ask my kids, man.
Or something like that, or whatever her name is there, or whatever there. I hope you become the next, the guy version of her. I'm saying. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for coming on the stream.
Yeah.
Is there any last minute things you wanted to add or say or anything like that?
Oh, I think you've had to ask everybody what their favorite weapon is.
Okay, all right.
I was here to tell you, Squid, it's the GG mod super shotgun. because that was my hands down favorite weapon in Doom 2. That was like my original love affair with multiplayer games. And the fact that Kilomile managed to bring back that punchy feel of the super shotgun, like when you jump out around the corner from somebody, get them, that's what I was after. So yeah, nice. That's been my favorite.
Yeah, I think I've asked just about every person on my podcast. You know what?
I just talked so much, I didn't leave you time to ask me questions. Sorry.
No, it's totally. You know what? I always say the more my guests talk, the happier everyone my fans will be.
We're looking at you, Steph.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, GG mod shotgun. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody who plays this server probably knows what you're talking about. But if you come on Denver here, or really any GG mod, I think there's some pub servers in QE with GG mod on. So I know Dan.
It's a shotgun with twice the bullets.
Yeah, it's basically like Doom shotgun and Quake, pretty much. If you think about it, but yeah. Yeah, but hey, man, it's been really nice to have you on here. What's your Twitch so that everybody knows?
My Twitch is watch CK lose, which is usually I'm in first place on this server, so that feels wrong. Fun. Yeah, usually I've found that when I'm the number one player on my team, I mostly play team deathmatch these days. If I'm at number one on my team's leaderboard, we're probably not doing so hot. So yeah. Come and watch CK lose. That's just, I'm not super competitive. I'm just having a good time.
All right. That's going to conclude our episode with CK here, Twitch streamer, programmer, all that kind of good stuff there. Thank you for coming on there. Guys, go ahead and check out his Twitch stream, and the link will be in the description here. Also, I wanted to mention, too, that Dan opened up the podcast room in the Quake QE Discord there, so if you guys are on there, you're more than welcome to join on there as well. You'll listen to us through Discord. Stuff like that there. So feel free to join us in the podcast room there. You can also chat there too, and maybe people can request to speak to, so maybe I'll have other speakers on. I don't know, I'm still thinking about that there, so no promises on that there, but definitely join QuakeQE.com. Invite to the Discord is there, and join us for games and podcast talk, stuff like that there. But I'm going to go ahead and end episode 7 here. We're kind of over our hour mark, but that's okay. It was worth it, I would say. And CK, thank you for coming on here, and I will see you around, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye, man.
Yeah.